Good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. PSG, or the Professional Service Group of Mercer County, is a group that is here for you, anyone that is in any career transition. And in addition to wishing you a good morning, of course, I wish you a happy Aloha Friday. I always wear my Aloha shirts on Friday, just something I like to do. You are all welcome to do so. And since we're not outdoors or having to go outdoors to visit, just stay indoors. You can do that a little bit more easily this winter. And welcome, of course, to our virtual meeting. We are going to be keeping our virtual meeting going, to be fair, for the foreseeable future. And it's working out well, and see people are enjoying it. So we will keep doing this and making it available. In addition to being a Good Friday and a happy Aloha Friday, for those of you that like the confection called brownie, today is actually National Blondie Day, or Blonde Brownie Day. No, we're not celebrating that musical group with Debbie Harry. It's that confection, a brownie that's made without chocolate. Don't see what the point is, but that's the way they make them for people who don't necessarily like or enjoy chocolate. So today is National Blonde Brownie Day. So maybe if you have the opportunity to go out, you might find one and want to enjoy one, or you have it at home, enjoy a blondie. For those of you visiting us for the first time, you get to hear my new announcements. And for those of you that have been here before, these are my old announcements. But do remember that we do have a lot of resources for you, for anybody in a career transition. We do have our LinkedIn group. Our LinkedIn group is called PSG of Mercer County. Just about everything we do online is called PSG of Mercer County. So search for us on Facebook and Twitter, and our LinkedIn group, which is always, LinkedIn's always powerful for job seekers. It's a little bit of a private group. We don't accept just anybody. We accept only you, people that have been to our in-person group at least once. So by that I mean, if you have not yet joined our LinkedIn group, get onto LinkedIn, search in the group section, put in the search bar PSG of Mercer County, and our group should pop right up. And there should be a join button. Click the join button, and we will place you in pending status. We won't accept anyone right away. We accept in pending status right away. And then what I will do is I will look at our assorted attendance records that we have. We have our in-person records when we were in person, and those from when people visited us virtually. And just to make sure that you have indeed been to one of our groups, one of our sessions, and then I'll accept you into the group. And the reason why we do that, we're just kind of keeping the list collectors out, the people that are name collecting just for their own benefit. That's not who we want in the group. We want people who kind of get the need for job search and do job search, or have been a part of it and help job search. So that's what we will do. We have over 1,600 members, over 1,600 members in the group right now. So it's a lot of people that you can communicate, and you may not even be connected yet one-to-one as a first degree to 1,600 people, but as soon as you join our group, anyone in the group will now be the equivalent of a first degree connection, in that you can send them an email as you're doing your research. You can contact those people and they may be able to help you. And there's a good chance people that you contact in our group or any of the job seeker support LinkedIn groups will contact you, because they understand the importance of staying connected in job search. We have our website, which we tout very proudly, psgofmercercounty.org, psgofmercercounty.org. It does have over 120 web pages, so a lot of content that's there. Maybe you just want to getting started in the job search, and you can go look in our professional development section, and you can go, career development. You can go in our professional development section and look for e-learning websites. We have links now to 54 e-learning websites. We do have our job boards pages. And so we have two sets in there. One is links to over 2,600 companies in Mercer County and the 6 border counties, kind of our service area. And it links to their career pages. So you can go right to their career pages by county and by business area. We also have a fairly new open postings page. A few people have been posting positions there, and so you can go see if any of them are there that are matches for you. And if you want to start sharing positions in our job boards page, let me know. We'll connect you up so you can post positions that you find. You may be getting emails occasionally for wonderful positions that you're just not qualified for, but a means to share them, of course, you can use the LinkedIn group, or you can even use now our open jobs page. So that's what's available. Just a couple of ground rules as we get ourselves started. I'm going to introduce Lisa in just a moment. And her program today is going to be first as a spoken presentation. So she's going to be talking to you directly, and then she'll be sharing her slides. So you may be seeing a lot of little squares on your screen right now, but you can change that. At the top of your screen, it may be saying view everyone with a couple of these arrows up and down. And that's kind of your view. But if you click on that, you can change it to only active cameras, which means the people with their cameras off, you won't see them. But the one you may want to change it to is who's talking. So you view who's talking. So that way, your experience is Lisa is talking to you one-on-one, and you get to see her a bit more clearly. A little while later, she will turn on her slide deck, and you'll see her at the top with the slide deck at the bottom, and that will be fine as well. And then, so that may be something you will want to do. We do ask for, during the presentation, that you do keep your microphone on mute, and so that way there is no accidental background noise or unexpected interruptions in the program. Lisa is going to be taking all of the Q&A that you have a little bit later at the end of the program. And so what I think we'll do, since it'll be at the end of the program, is what we did last week, which seemed to work out well. We're going to have a lot of people on this call. It's just typical for our group. And so I'll ask, use chat. And in chat, just send to everyone, so at least that I get the chance to see it, send the word question. And then that way, I will see that you have a question. That'll be kind of the electronic equivalent of raising your hand. And you don't have to turn your camera on and wave and anything. So just write the word question. And then what I'll do is let you know. So if, for instance, Alex had a question, I'll say, Alex, it's your turn. You will turn your microphone on and ask Lisa the question, and she can just speak with you directly. So we'll use that format. But we are going to save the questions to the end, and I think that should work out nicely for this morning. Okay, so I just quickly double checked. It looks like everybody else is mute except for me. In a moment, Lisa will unmute, but in the meantime, I will say that PSG of Mercer County is just pleased to welcome back Lisa Manyoky. Lisa is the founder of Presence Intelligence, which she defines as the ability to recognize and align the best parts of who you are on the inside with what you project on the outside. Lisa is an energetic personality, known for her intuitive understanding of people, interpersonal dynamic, words, and aesthetics. As a career-long specialist in communications, whether spoken, written, visual, or behavioral, Lisa helps her clients accelerate the achievement of their personal and career goals by developing, refining, or rebuilding their personal presence. She works routinely with professionals who are preparing for advancement to high visibility leadership roles or seeking to become more likable, approachable, hireable, or promotable. Lisa is certified in several coaching disciplines that include life, executive, neuroscience coaching. She is also a trained DISC administrator, a certified conversational intelligence coach and facilitator, and an inspirational speaker. Personally and professionally, she is a bright on the spot is a bright spot in the room, a bit of a firecracker who champions self-awareness, integrity, kind communications, and nothing short of excellence. So PSG of Mercer County is very pleased to welcome our favorite firecracker, Lisa Manyoky.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. What a nice way to start off a Friday, huh? All righty. So, David, just in the spirit of user error, I did shut my screen share button. So when I'm ready, I'll give you a heads up. But I don't need it now.
Okay.
So, a few years ago, I watched my first episode of The Twilight Zone. It was the story of James B.W. Beavis, who's this quirky, lovable guy who wears odd suits and he plays football in the streets each morning with the neighborhood kids. He drives his car that's falling apart and he covers his desk at the office with taxidermy. So all in one day, he gets evicted from his apartment. He loses his job and gets a parking ticket and has a car accident. So he heads to the local bar down the street to drown his sorrows. And all of a sudden, his guardian angel appears and offers him the chance to relive the day. This time around, he'll get a new wardrobe, his rent will be paid, he'll have a nice car, and he'll be really successful at work. But there's a catch. He has to give up all of his funky clothes, football in the street with the kids, his car, and all of those stuffed animal treasures on his desk. But he figures it's worth it, so he accepts the offer. And in an instant, his plaid jacket and striped bow are replaced by some conservative suit and a skinny tie. His landlord thanks him for paying his rent 3 weeks in advance, and his Rickenbacker now becomes this snazzy Austin Healey. His desk is spotless at the office, and his boss gives him a $10 raise. But now his neighbors ignore him, and the kids won't throw him the football. His colleagues don't greet him when he shows up for work, and his desk looks nude. His word. He's miserable. So these lifestyle upgrades came at the cost of giving up the best parts of himself that he thought made his life great. So he summons his guardian angel and says, listen, there's things that I like and the things that I believe in. I know they're odd to you, but they're worth considerably more than $10, so I want my old life back. And just like that, it returned. That meant now he's homeless, he's unemployed, and about to get a parking ticket. But he doesn't mind because the price for being who he's not is too great a price to pay. So now his neighbors are saying hello. The kids in the street are throwing him the ball. The street peddler tosses him an apple in his own inimitable way. His colleagues are happy when he shows up for work. Beavis is happy and his life feels good. So this show aired decades ago, but its messages are timeless. Number one, being liked for who you are feels good. Number two, getting ahead in life feels good too, but not if you have to sell your soul to do it. Number three, the finer things in life do not guarantee a finer life. Sharing kindness begets more of the same, and happiness is fuel. Now, in my own lifetime, I experienced these concepts firsthand. On December 10th of 1977, I came home from school to the announcement that my father had left our home. It was a unilateral decision. He didn't consult with my mother or prepare my brother, sister, and I. He just packed his bags and moved out. It wasn't a complete surprise because he threatened it before, but this time he followed through. Needless to say, his leaving was more of a relief than anything because we didn't have to sit on pins and needles any longer, just waiting for him to actually execute. So life went on without him, and it was pretty good. He continued to run our family school bus business while my mom raised us kids. Well, about 4 years later, she got a letter in the mail from an attorney who said my dad wanted to begin divorce proceedings, and he was hoping that their split would be amicable. But the moment my mother got that letter was the moment his chances for a friendly split evaporated. He didn't know it, but he tripped a few switches with my mother's circuitry that would ultimately become his undoing. Because, you see, my mother grew up around that school bus company. It used to belong to her father. So when he retired, he sold my parents each 48 shares of stock, which made them equal partners. Now, my grandfather was shrewd because he kept 1 share of stock in his name and 1 in my aunt's, which gave him some leverage to and an option to exercise control if he ever needed it. So, with a divorce looming, and as you'd expect, my mom sought his advice, and advice he did give. He sent her to an attorney who reviewed her case and asked, "So, what do you want to give him?" Meaning my father. And she answered, she said, "Nothing." She said, "He's been gone for 4 years. He shouldn't get anything." And the attorney said, "But New Jersey law says he does. And because you and your husband are majority shareholders of a corporation, it's a marital asset. So your choice is to keep your dad's company or $200,000, your car, your house, and all its contents." Now, my mom had been a stay-at-home parent for nearly 20 years. She had no idea how to operate a school bus company, but she knew that if she left my father in charge of the business, then he'd also be in charge of our money. And leaving herself vulnerable to his authority was just too risky a proposition. So, in September of '81, she called for a meeting of the board of directors, which included my grandfather, my father, and the corporate attorney. Just before that meeting, however, my grandfather sold my mom his share of stock, which made her the controlling proprietor. And after that sale, she and the attorney went to the bank and removed my dad's banking privileges. And then she went to the office and fired him. So within 6 weeks, my parents had a court date on the calendar, but it was in superior court, not matrimonial, because a corporation was among the assets. Now, it was a very funny scene when they showed up, because my dad walked in his suit and his fancy schmancy leather briefcase. And my mom walked in with a cigar box full of receipts, but also followed by an army of attorneys. She had no intention of leaving that day without her father's company, and she didn't. The judge decided to give the company to her. But my mom had a big problem. She didn't know how to run it. Yet that business had to run without interruption, no matter who was in charge. So she assembled all the employees, explained the circumstances, and promised that if they helped her, then she'd do her best. All but one employee stayed. And the drama continued because, remember, my father got the 200 grand, a car, our house, and all of its contents. He put the house up for sale, and we had 60 days to get out, or we'd have to start paying him rent. So he had a sheriff come to take photographs of the walls, the cabinets, closets, insides of drawers to ensure that we didn't take anything. And we didn't. In the meantime, my uncle, who was president of Roma Savings and Loan, which is now Investors Bank, helped my mom find a house and get a mortgage. And in January of '82, we moved. We left with no notice. We took our personal effects and nothing else. And for the longest time, we ate dinner at a card table with lawn chairs and dined with plastic forks and paper plates because we couldn't take any furnishings or dishes or even cans of food. But we never paid my dad rent. So things were peaceful for a while until we learned that my father used that $200,000 to open a competing business in the same township as my mother. So they became business competitors in the same township and remained that way until he died. Now, I do not share this story to malign my father. You know, he worked with the tools he believed he had, which were a bit broken, and we made our peace before he died, which was at 50. But I learned a whole lot for witnessing my parents' tragedies and their triumphs, and by observing the complex dynamics between them, I got my earliest lessons in the power of presence. So the thorn in their side really became the rose of my mission. That episode of The Twilight Zone makes a really good case for its merit because, look, Beavis was self-aware. He knew he had a few quirks, and he was okay with them. And because he was so warm and kind, others were okay with him too, for the most part. My father, on the other hand, fancied himself a likable guy, but remember, only one employee followed him. All the others took a high-risk leap of faith for a kind woman who didn't know how to run the company that kept them employed, instead of putting up with a boss they already knew but didn't like. So, as professionals who are in search of your next employment chapter, how is any of this relevant to you? It is, because I say every person who draws breath each morning needs to figure out who they are, what they want to do, what they're built to do, and what they're meant to do. And very importantly, to find others who make it easy to do it, whatever it is. Life is better if you fit your life and if your life fits you, just like Beavis discovered. When whatever you feel on the inside doesn't match what you project and experience on the outside, then that grind of misalignment can take you down a path that just doesn't feel quite right. It can deny you a feeling of comfort in your skin. It can make you dread going to work or coming home from work. It can ruin your mood, which will leach into every part of your life, including the ones that are working well, because moods are catchy. There are a lot of job opportunities, and it's easy to match up credentials and experience with postings on LinkedIn or Indeed, but being able and knowing will not guarantee that you'll get the job, and it certainly won't necessarily deliver joy. Further, technology is changing so fast that no amount of it will replace the warmth of a smile or the comfort of a dialogue or the deliciousness of a shared meal. Who you are and how you relate can be the tipping points that elevate you head and shoulders above others who are vying for the same position. You know, Siri and Alexa might be smart, but they don't have what we have. So I say, make what we do have extraordinary. And that starts here and here. And when there's magic, it's because what's in here and here merges with what's out there. Now, some people seem to make this magic without effort. They know exactly what to say and how to say it every time they open their mouth. They're self-assured and at ease and in command. They have what's called presence, which most would regard as an essential skill for professionals who want to own the room when they want to pitch a sale or speak to a crowd. In reality, it is, but presence is important for everyone to master because everyone has one. In other words, everybody gives information to their world and the world by way of visibles such as looks and actions, and invisibles such as vibe and energy, including you. Your presence can open doors to opportunities, or it can slam them shut. It can strengthen your relationships or strangle them. It can make it easy to feel happy and excel in your endeavors, or it can weigh you down and infect your mood and your state of mind and the state of mind and mood of everyone around you, because remember, moods are catchy. So developing presence is a process, but its first step is understanding yourself. So again, you need to take a long, hard look at what's up here and in here, and then an honest look at what you put out there, and then find the gaps and close them. So let's learn about how to go about closing those gaps. So David, I'd love to share my screen here. If you'll give me the,
1 second.
give me the power.
I actually think you are still presenter.
All righty, then let's give it a whirl. All right, hold on, folks.
Find your profile. Yep, you are still presenter. So you should have a button called screen.
Yep, I got it.
Click, yep, there you go.
All righty.
There you go. Okay, we see it.
All righty. So presence intelligence. This is an initiative. I've found it, and I regard it as the secret to becoming more hireable. Your resume, probably one of the first things you do, can get you your foot in the door, but it won't carry you across the threshold. Your resume is a listing of tasks that say what you've done or cites experiences that you've had, but your resume today is filtered by applicant tracking systems, that is software that screens for keywords as it does in websites. It collects resumes and applications from hundreds of job seekers and then makes certain that certain words appear, including knockout phrases, which are exclusionary terms such as full-time versus part-time or remote versus on-site. If you don't meet the criteria in your application gets booted from the system before there's any interview to be had. So that despite your resume is a good start, it is certainly just the beginning. Presence is like the wind. You can't see it, but you can see what it does. Whenever I ask people to describe what it is, they use words such as confident or in command. There's a quality about someone that makes you want to pay attention. You know, it's seemingly invisible, and yet people notice when it's not there. It's painfully present. Now, I maintain that everybody needs to master a presence because we all have one. In other words, as stated before, everybody gives information to their world and the world by way of things you can see, read, hear, and feel. Your presence can open those doors to opportunity or slam them shut. It does come naturally to some people. However, it is not always innate, and it is something you can learn. There are two types of presence. There's tactical versus authentic. So a tyrant in a suit is simply a well-dressed tyrant. Playing the role or dressing the part does not mean the same as being the role or being the part. Unless you're a method actor, tactical presence is not sustainable. For example, In order to get the best results in court, attorneys often recommend that their clients wear certain things or behave in certain ways. For example, in a financial crimes case, an attorney wouldn't want a person to wear really, really fancy clothes or lots of jewelry. Now, in kind, they'd want a farmer to dress responsibly and appropriately, but not to such a degree that it looks like a case of smoke and mirrors. Further, when your attire does not make you comfortable, especially in court, it could come across as guilt, which would not be an ideal result. Now, your authentic presence is much easier to sustain because it's natural. There are factors, though, that can run interference, such as parents or family members or partners and other authority figures in your life who have had some degree of influence. Sometimes their influence is oppressive. Other times, their directives are really well intended, but not necessarily right for you. Consider the cellist whose parents insisted that she go to school for engineering because they didn't believe she'd ever make a living being a musician. That poor kid spent 4 years in college studying something that she never planned to pursue or that she even liked. When I was growing up, my family always told me that I marched to the beat of my own drum, and it never felt like a compliment. So thankfully, I finally decided that I liked the beat and the music it made, and I did my own thing. The nice thing is I liked it, and so did others, which made things much easier to maintain. My colleague, Judith Glaser, is the founder of Conversational Intelligence. Since she founded that, she has since passed away, but her legacy continues. She claims that the process of connectivity begins in 0.07 seconds and within 10 feet. Now, that's fast and that's close. I would have been a naysayer of this prior. However, for 13 years, I trained in martial arts. And when my teacher used to talk about his energy and energy stagnation, I used to tell him that it was a bunch of hokey pokey voodoo magic. So one day he had me stand up in front of him and he said, "Stand still, stop talking, put your hands up," as if I was playing patty cake. So then he stood across from me with his hands about an inch or so from mine. He said nothing and he stared at me. And within seconds, I felt heat. And I mean, not just a little warmth. I'm talking measurable, profound heat. So after that, he just laughed at me, slapped me on the back, and we proceeded to a class. But it let me know that there is a huge energy exchange between people that with focus is instantaneous. Others will feel what you bring to a room. Presence intelligence is something that will help you understand what goes on when you do. It is the awareness, understanding, and command of how you relate to, affect, and influence others in the moments you interact with them and after you part ways. So here's a summary of it. Again, the awareness, so you know what's happening, the understanding, you get what's happening, you understand why, and the command, you control what's happening. This gives you the option to regulate what you put out there depending upon the circumstances that warrant more or less of who you are or what you can contribute. Ideally, your desires and your intentions match how you're perceived and received. In other words, what happens when you walk into the room actually occurs. And if you don't know what happens into a room, then find out. If you like what's happening, then do more of it. If you don't, then do less, even if that means changing the room. Now, the sweet spot to be really comfortable when you do enter a room is to make sure that you understand, again, what you want to do, what you're built to do, and if possible, what you're meant to do. Now, sometimes purpose is a moving target, and it can change as we grow older, as we change circumstances in life. But if you have a hint, add it to the equation. Life is better when you fit it and it fits you. Now, a good start for presence is to determine your natural personality style. Now, I have taken many an assessment in my day. Some I like more than others. I do caution everyone that an assessment is only as good as how honest you are and how accurate and how much science there is behind it. DISC I am trained in DISC. I have found it to be a really good snapshot of how a person moves through life. It determines your natural personality style. In other words, who wakes up in the morning before there's any interference from the day. And then it compares to who shows up in the workplace. If there's a great discrepancy between the two, then that indicates that there's some type of stressor in the mix that is making it more difficult for you to be who you are. Can you control it? Sure. Can you defy it? Sure. But the summary of DISC is that you might be a blend of dominance, influence, conscientiousness, and steadiness. Everybody has bits of 4 pieces, but the greater Ds might be CEOs or bosses of organizations. The greater I's might be your sales and marketing team. They thrive amidst people and social situations. The C's might be architects and researchers who enjoy data and prefer working on their own. They tend to have a black and white approach to their business. And then S's would be support staff, nurses, caregivers. I am a high I and a D, which is an excellent blend for a consultant because I like people, and yet I'm not so distracted by the social life, I still get things done. Here's another alternative, and this is the tool that I have developed. It's called the Presence Intelligence Alignment Inventory. The premise of this inventory is that it is a substantive, interactive inventory of the 9 areas of life where you can be strong or weak. These 9 areas typically shape your personal presence. Interesting, there's an effect called the dilution effect. If you've watched or listened to pharmaceutical commercials that list an entire string of side effects, they typically end with something innocuous like itchy feet or tingly sensations. And so it is with presence. You can be really strong in some areas of life, but there can be this one arena that makes it impossible to see all of them. For example, let's say someone is perfectly dressed, hair is primped, the writing is good, they get along well with people, but when they speak, maybe they spit when they talk, or their grammar is atrocious. There's the dilution effect. The benefit of an instrument like this is that you can see what you can refine so that you can elevate it, and what you can elevate so that your presence is stronger and more confident than ever. This is an inventory, again, that I have developed, and the nice thing is if you take it, you also get an hour with me to discuss its results and set a plan. If you ever have any questions, by all means, you can get in touch with me, and I'm impromptu friendly. Now, presence is a really sensory experience. You have to know what you're giving your audience to see, feel, hear, and experience. Need I say more? The gentleman in this picture will be perceived very differently by way of his attire. And clothing doesn't make the man. It just makes the man look a certain way. Remember that jury example. The guy on the left would likely be represented well and be regarded differently than the guy on the right who shows up. That is certainly bias, but bias is a real thing. Your voice is a natural instrument with its own qualities that you can't change. However, you can control its volume and its pitch, and you can control the words that you use and the manner in which you deliver them. Always record your voice so you know how you appear to others, and definitely take a video of yourself so you can see what others see. That's the only way you can get information that if you wish to change, you can. This one's pretty obvious. Hygiene is good. Spelling bad is not. And here's an extra tip in terms of the aroma category. Be careful with heavy perfumes and colognes. You know, I used to be a counselor for a chemotherapy support group, and there was a young lady whose mom always used to spray a certain perfume when she was getting her chemotherapy because the hospital smelled medicinal. Well, this young lady survived her cancer. And one day she got into an elevator with a woman who was wearing that perfume, but instantaneously her mind connected that perfume with throwing up after chemotherapy, and she threw up all over this woman's shoes. So you never know what scent you might trigger with an individual, and it may not be in your favor. So just be careful with heavy perfumes, colognes, and any other aromas, hairsprays. You know, today I miss handshakes. I really do. I can't wait till they come back. I will tell you that a handshake, though it's not always an ideal gesture in some cultures, it is pretty much anticipated in ours. A handshake gives lots of information about you. Wet is nervous. Wimpy is insecure. Too tight is authoritative, maybe even dictatorial. And too short is tentative. A good handshake is about 5 seconds long with a pump up and down 2 or 3 times and then let go. Here's a mantra that can help you understand and better stay the course when you've recognized all your best assets. Look good, sound good, be good, do good. But first, you have to define good. Remember the guy in the suit and the guy in the t-shirt with the tattoos. Same guy, different qualities. Good is subjective. A guy with tattoos and a leather vest would likely raise a few eyebrows if he walked into a conference room with a bunch of bankers who were in Brooks Brothers suits. But if he were really good at what he did, he might be forgiven that wardrobe faux pas. There was a gentleman called John Asher who founded an engineering company, and he needed a software developer to work on some acoustic programming for the Navy. Well, this job was a high priority specialty task, and this guy who showed up did not make a great impression with HR. He wore a baseball cap backwards. He had a shirt sporting some rapper who was famous for foul language, and he didn't have a neatly trimmed beard. He was a mess, and I think he had dirty sneakers on too. But this guy was good at what he did, and he was eventually hired because of his skill and expertise. So if you want to take the risk and be true to yourself and defy anything that might be expected in terms of wardrobe or behavior, then go for it. But be willing to pay the consequences if they don't go your way. Even so, knowing what you believe to be good and honoring it will help you feel more comfortable in your own skin. Simply be cognizant of requirements that don't align with that. If they're so egregious to you, then look elsewhere for a job, an environment, a circle of friends. Here are about 10 ideas that can help you, regarded really as best practices, that can help you present well. Number 1, identify what makes you tick and what doesn't. You know what you like. You know what you don't. Is it arts? Is it sciences? Is it accounting? Is it a mission trip? You're the only person who can really answer this question to your core. So ask it of yourself and answer. Identify who makes you tick and who does not. Ideally, being around people who like you because of who you are and don't tolerate you in spite of who you are is closer to an ideal for a good presence. There's no way you can be happy and all of who you are if the people around you are not your champions. So find who they are and spend time with them. Make peace with the things about yourself that you can't or won't change. Look, I will never be tall or willowy. I'm 5'2" with an athletic build. On my best day, I will not stretch. So I'm not going to do anything about that. I made peace with it. It doesn't bother me. I know others who have challenges with themselves that really interfere with their ability to present well, but they can't change them. It's necessary to make peace. For example, I know a gentleman who, at 52 years old, experienced a traumatic brain injury after he hit his head on a weight bench. He ended up having a stroke while hospitalized, which left him with a 30% deficit of one side of his body, including his face. Now, this guy wrote well, he spoke well, he was talented, and yet His comfort with his appearance interfered with every other dimension of his work. Our task was to help him reconcile what was permanent and find ways to work with it instead of around it. Number 4, strengthen and make good use of your natural assets and smile. A smile is one of the easiest ways to engage others.
It means something, and the fake smile is one of our most common nonverbal lies. Now, we're going to test your ability to spot a fake smile. Which of these smiles is fake? Think you got it? Well, we think you got it wrong. So, do you think you were able to pick out the fake smile? If you picked the one on the left, you're correct. Okay, let's try another round. Which smile is fake? Surprised? It's harder than you thought, right? If you didn't get these correct, you're not alone. We wanted to see if the average person could spot a fake smile. So we brought this game to the park.
That one's fake.
And found that people only get it right about half the time.
I think that one's real. It is really hard to tell. Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you know how smiles actually work. There's a term, okay? It's called the Duchenne smile. Duchenne smile means it's a real smile. A real smile involves the muscles around the eyes being a part of the smile.
Guillaume Duchenne was a French scientist who wanted to learn more about facial expressions. So he used electrical stimulation to create a fake smile. Then he compared it to a real one by telling his subject a joke. And the difference was striking. What he discovered is that a real smile causes the muscles around your eyes to contract, creating telltale crinkles. Now that you know the trick, let's see if you can pick out the fake smile. Which smile is real, the right or the left? The eyes are a dead giveaway, right? The smile on the left is genuine. Want to try another one? What do you think? See how the skin around the eyes scrunches up involuntarily? The left smile is real. Okay, one more, but it's a little trickier. Which smile is real, the right or the left? Can you see how the skin around her eyes wrinkled up just a tiny bit more on the right? That's the real smile. It's not surprising that real and fake smiles activate two different parts of the brain. A real smile involves the areas of the brain related to emotions, but a fake smile activates the motor cortex. That's the part of your brain that controls voluntary movement. By the way, here's how we got our two sets of smiles. First, we asked our participants to give us their best fake smile. Then we brought in some heavy ammunition.
Puppies and babies, they always work. By the way, just so you know, smiling back to someone is actually a reflex. So if someone smiles to you, or if you smile to someone and they don't respond, they have made a choice to do that. Keep that in mind. All right, number 5, correct or eliminate looks and sounds that don't serve you well. Where you have choice, exercise it. So that means the use of grammar, words, spell check when you write, even in your emails and texts. Somebody can capture a screenshot of something that might ruin your race for mayor someday. Wear clothes that flatter you and that fit you. You can affect those changes. So again, those things that you cannot change, like the shape of your nose or whether or not you have long hair or a bald head, fix what you can and make peace with what you can't. Refine communications to accurately reflect who you are. You know, the cloak of anonymity is a dangerous garb. I refer to that as the text and email muscles that some people show when they are inclined to write something that they would never say to someone else's face. A good measure of whether it should make its way in print is if you'd be comfortable saying it to someone out loud or in front of a judge. Become excellent or more excellent than you already are. Good performance can overcome deficits in other arenas. Think of the John Asher engineering case. That gentleman, his performance was so good that his prospective employers were able to overlook the parts about him that they just found disagreeable. Be nice to yourself. Be nice to others always. Kindness is a huge contributor to presence and success. In fact, in terms of the be good, do good, sound good, and look good quote that I mentioned earlier, I have found that doing good and being kind to others has great ability to make other deficits, again, forgiven. The person who has an untucked shirt all the time, or who might not have the best grammar, but who's a really nice person, may have greater latitude when he or she makes mistakes. So as simple as it sounds, and maybe even cliche, just be nice. Draw boundaries or end relationships with those who do not appreciate who you are. If someone is in your way, if someone is preventing you from exercising the best of who you are, then move them. Sometimes this comes with loss. That can be difficult. If you can't do it yourself, then get help. And I don't mean physically. You know, in some cases, the end of a relationship is the best thing for you. It will open up the opportunities that are ideal for you that you could not have otherwise realized if you continued in the role with that individual. Develop step techniques to stay the course. You know, a rudder keeps a boat heading in the right direction. When you find your sweet spot of what you want to do, are built to do, and meant to do, then pull in resources to keep you on track. That might mean a mantra, like the look good, sound good, be good, do good. It might mean a coach, or it might mean an accountability partner. Use tactical strategies to keep you on course. Now, here's a little bit of background about some of the science behind presence that's just good for you to know, but certainly not to master. It's just, these are little tweaky things that I did not know, but made me understand what was going on in my body when I was happy and when I was not. And your presence, when you are stressed, everybody around you feels it, because remember, you are emitting energy. Others are picking that up, and they're picking it up really quickly. When you are stressed and aroused, you emit cortisol, adrenaline, and noradrenalin. Cortisol is your stress hormone that stays in your body for 26 hours. When you're happy and connected and in a state of pleasure, oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins are secreted. Now, oxytocin is the hormone that mothers secrete when they have babies. It's often called the cuddling hormone. Dopamine, it's likened to cocaine. It gives you feelings of exuberance and joy. And endorphins are exercise hormones. They are feel good all through the body hormones that will enable you to feel happy. Happy people connect more easily and readily with others. So heed your body cues. You don't necessarily need to know the science of presence, but your body will tell you in ways that you do. Goosebumps, pink cheeks, if you get a pit in your stomach, a headache, sweat, have to go to the bathroom frequently, or if you get that warm surge of fear behind your sternum and your chest. We are hardwired to read other people really quickly. In fact, there is a neural network that was developed by a gentleman named Constance von Economo. It's called the Venn network. There is a neuron that goes from your brain all the way to your gut, which is where we get the term of feeling in your gut or gut instinct. There's physiology behind it, and it will alert your whole body that you're in a position that's stressing you or one that is making it easy to be you. Develop a mantra. A mantra is 3 or 4 words that enables you to focus on a target or a thought where you can keep remember the rudder idea, yourself headed in the right direction, a direction that's good for you. There was a time when my son he was 16, 17, he was playing ice hockey. And the kids on the team were losing big time, 11-1, 12-2. It was brutal to watch as a parent. Well, I know that the same mantra developments that work in a boardroom and for presence development will work in the locker room. So I asked the coach if I could spend 10 minutes in the locker room with the kids the next day. Now, this guy was 6'5" and I'm 5'2", and he couldn't understand what I could contribute, but it was 10 a.m. and he smelled like beer. So I said, just let me in. So he did. And I ended up spending the rest of the season with these kids for 10 minutes because I gave each of them a mantra. So for the offense, it was in the other net. For the defense, it was out of my zone. And for the goalie, it was in my glove. Those kids left after 10 minutes of conversation. And when they started to fumble and get nervous on the ice, they just focused on those words, each that had been assigned. They were a different team. They won that game. They gave me the game puck. And the parents said, "What did you tell them?" And I said, I told them things that they'd probably already heard in different ways, but I was a new voice, and I gave them a thing to concentrate upon when they felt like they were wobbly or veering off course. Truthfully, that was one of the most exciting and gratifying experiences I'd ever had with my son, who, by the way, did give me permission to go into that locker room. But again, a mantra can help keep you focused toward targets that you have set. If you get nervous when you're in a situation, this could be ultimately an interview, whether it's virtual or in person. The 7-11 breathing technique is something you can do in real time. If you've ever eaten turkey at Thanksgiving and then you want to go to sleep afterwards, that's the same system that becomes active when you exhale longer than you inhale. It's called the rest and digest system, or the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you have to have an interview, or whether it's a stressful dialogue, all you do is breathe in 7 seconds and make certain that you exhale for 11, or at a minimum, a lengthier exhale. That will trip that system, and you will start to feel your body relax and be soothed. Another thing that you can do so that you're prepared for moments like that is to practice some kind of a fumble comment. The first time that I had to speak on a stage, when I tell you how often I practiced this message, I mean, it went on for months. And as soon as I got before the cameras and the people, everything I was going to say evaporated. So I said, one of the better experiences you get to have at a live presentation is watching as a presenter forgets what they have to say, like right now. The truth is, I just bought myself some time to regroup, but my transparency actually became more endearing than if I had presented with a polished speech. Now, I would have rather presented the polished speech, but the fact that I fumbled did not matter. I was able to come back really quickly, and it became a benefit to the presentation instead of a black mark. Name it to tame it is another thing that can calm you down. By naming what you're feeling, you actually can cause your brain to secrete soothing chemicals. And here's a little film about that.
There are studies that everybody should know about that I summarize with the phrase, name it to tame it. So if you're really agitated, you're frightened of being rejected again, or you're really upset with what happened, or you're angry or whatever, in Maria's right brain, I can tell you this, in addition to right and left, there's, please excuse these incredibly simplistic statements, but there's an upstairs brain and a downstairs brain. Now, I'm fine with that for this parenting book, but believe me, my other foot is in science, and the scientists would see that and go, what? But the fact is, there's a cortical rim where a lot of this higher stuff goes on, and there's everything below the cortex. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your fingers and put your hands over the top, give this a try. This would be in my brain like this, see? And so this would be the cortex where you do all your thinking and planning and all that kind of stuff. If you lift up your cortex, you have everything below the cortex, which we call the downstairs brain. That's reasonable. Downstairs is just a substitute for the word subcortical, which freaks parents out. So downstairs. And it's the upstairs brain is the cortex. Okay, so you lift up your upstairs brain, you go to your downstairs brain, that's the subcortex. It's the limbic area and it's the brainstem. These are very ancient circuits responsible for things like emotion and motivation and fight, flight, freeze reaction and your arousal states, whether you're awake or asleep, stuff like that. So what happens at that moment is, if we did a scan on your brain, we would say that your right amygdala, your limbic area, and your downstairs brain is super active. I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared. And studies show that if you have this kind of presence and of mind, I can get Maria's left brain to name feeling from the downstairs brain. And you can show that she will squirt soothing neurotransmitters down to her right limbic area, right downstairs brain, and calm it down.
Good information. Even though that was for a parenting book, the techniques work for any circumstance where you're stressed. Here's an important lesson. Justine Sacco, in case you haven't heard of this gal, she was a PR specialist who was on her way to a European trip in Africa. And just before she got on the plane, she sent out a tweet that said, "Going to Africa. Hope I don't get AIDS. I'm kidding, I'm white." By the time she was in the air, her tweet had been circulated thousands and thousands of times. Her friend tried to delete her account, but didn't do so quickly enough. And by the time this woman landed on the plane, she was greeted by a throng of reporters and photographers who wanted to see how she'd react when she realized that she was shared across the world with such a scathing remark. This woman ended up losing her career and her health for years because she didn't think to be cautious about what she put in print. So these little stories are little reminders that what you put out there, whether you can see it or not, becomes information that the rest of the world can digest, and it's either going to work in your favor or it is not. Pause before you post. I think in this last year was probably the most volatile, polarized series of information shared across the internet. When you post things, 70% of organizations, statistics are showing, are looking at social media to get a feel for you as a potential employee. So make certain that whatever you post is worth losing that opportunity, or on the flip side, feeding your way toward it. Choose the path of least resistance with awareness and only if necessary. This means, I know it can be tempting when you have responsibilities that need to be met in terms of income, mortgages, credit cards and such. It can be tempting to take any job just to get a paycheck. However, if you have the latitude of time, then keep on the course of finding a work role that really makes best use of your natural assets and your skills and that you like. Because when those two scenarios are operative, you have a much better chance of performing well and then moving through and up an organization in ways that benefit you in terms of prestige if you like it, profit if that's a priority. I know it can be hard, believe me, I do, but if you can stay the course for something that's closer to your ideal, then stay the course. Write down your goals and share them with a friend. There's a woman, Dr. Gail Matthews from the Dominican University, who showed that when you write down your goals and share them with a friend, you are more likely to accomplish them. So here are the steps. Write them down. Rate each goal according to the degree of difficulty, importance, ability to execute, and your commitment level to them. Then write down action commitments for each goal. In other words, how are you going to get them done? But here's the important part. Share them with a friend and then report progress weekly to that friend. Having someone to whom you are accountable will make the difference between the speed at which you accomplish it or not. Visualize your ideal. Many times we say, oh, I don't want that, or I don't want that. I don't want this, I don't want that. If you visualize that which you want, your brain is magnetic. Think about it. We get MRIs, we get X-rays. It all uses and the energy that we emit. When you visualize that which you want, you will see things that you otherwise do not. Now, because many of us are not on the road now, I won't conduct this exercise, but I will explain it to you. This is my famed yellow Jeep exercise in vision. And my neuroscience teacher had told me that He had a class of 25 students visualize a yellow Jeep. He had them think about sitting at behind the driver's wheel and touching the leather steering wheel. He had them walk around it in their mind and take note of its exterior and the smell of the leather and whatnot. And at the end of the week, at the end of a week's time, when they reconvened, he asked them how many people had seen a Jeep, and all but one of them had seen one. Now, I don't know where I thought I could pull this off, but I wanted to prove him wrong. So as I went through this exercise with him, I'm telling you, on the 6th of 7 days, I thought, I haven't seen any Jeep yet. And wouldn't you know it, I turned my head to the right, and there's a yellow Jeep. So he called my bluff, but it is really effective. This is because your brain is being bombarded with all kinds of data all day long, and it can only digest so much. When you visualize what you want, your brain screens out extraneous information and lets you see opportunities, people who you need, and can actually help steer you toward where you want to go. And to close, today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Dr. Seuss, pretty profound. There's no one who can tell you who you are except for you. I joke with my kids, they say, you're the boss of you, act like it. This is one instance when I'd like them to have complete authority, and I encourage you to do the same. So that is a very robust but quick overview of presence intelligence and how it can serve you as you seek your next role in your career.
Wow, terrific, Lisa. You know, if you want to keep that last slide up a little bit longer, that's fine too. Folks, we have plenty of time if you'd like to ask Lisa a question or two. And so all I ask is please put the word question in chat, and then I will just call on you in the order in which the questions are received. But, you know, Lisa, I found this, you know, it's a powerful topic, and this was just such an enjoyable presentation. I liked how you opened up letting us know that moods are catchy. And so it's very important of how we, you know, present ourselves to others, presenting, you know, a smile, a real smile. I guess that becomes important. Being nice to others, it's kind of the golden rule or a version of it. So I think that was important as well. And I also like how you told your kids, you know, you are the boss of you. Not sure if you know, some people do. Rod Colon, he's also a public speaker and coach, and he talks about being the CEO of you. Mm-hmm. And actually, he frames it more first person. I am the CEO of me, Inc. And you know, so he you know, kind of allows us to take that responsibility and be in charge. And you know, I was thinking also, as you mentioned, how ending a relationship could be the best choice for you, and at least thinking about it professionally. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed when I lost my job the first time. It was in 2012. But sitting where I am now, I'm much happier where I am now than where I was then. And, the former job, you know, almost like a multi-stage rocket. It got me to this point. But yeah, it was them letting me go. In hindsight, is the best thing to happen to me professionally.
You know, and I can tell you, you know, I know where everybody is in this position. You know, when in 2006, my now ex-husband literally took my kids to school when they were 6, 9, and 10, came home, put his key on the table, and saw an attorney 3 days later and sued for divorce. Because of some crafty accounting, the discrepancy between our documented salaries, and it wasn't crafty accounting on my part, the discrepancy was so huge that it enabled him to sue me for enough alimony to cancel out child support. Wow. So overnight, I became fiscally and custodially responsible for 3 children who were 6, 9, and 10. And let me tell you something, I lost my job at the same time. The main account that was my source of income, I was suddenly super responsible for a whole lot of money. I had kids in private school and custody, and I was without income. I know what it is like to be suddenly without this source of security, and it's scary. So I have worn those shoes, and they really hurt. But it can be tempting, as I say, to do just anything, although it can make the days and weeks really long. And then you bring that into your home with your family, and that just, it leaks out into the rest of your world. So the longer you can hold out for your ideal, when possible, hold out for your ideal.
Terrific. Yeah, I agree. We do have a question. It looks like, oops, where did it go? Kathy. So Kathy, you have a question, and just unmute yourself, Kathy Conant, and ask away.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. That was a wonderful presentation. My question was about the smile factor. And as much as you talk about being genuine and being your true self, I'm wondering, do you think though there's any value to kind of putting on a fake smile, maybe in order to help lift our moods and kind of help us to get to that place where there's a genuine smile?
Well, in other words, work from the outside in.
Yeah.
Sure. Listen, the best way to actually access a smile that will help you is to, in the cliche, go to your happy place, because a real smile that has great benefit comes from the part of your brain that controls emotions. If you're just putting on a happy face, that comes from the part of your brain that controls muscle. It's different. But when you imagine yourself on the beach or with someone who you love, you will actually retrieve energy from the limbic part of your brain, which controls emotions, and then smile so that you can feel happier. So the muscle part, it can do something, but not as much as if you generate the source.
Oh, that's a good thought. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you, Kathy and Lisa. Hillary also has a question. She entered it, so I guess I will read it. But Hillary, if you'd like to unmute yourself and participate in the discussion, that's fine. Hillary's question is, COVID is deeply isolating, and this can create a vicious cycle of aloneness with job hunting when we need to be more connected. Do you have any suggestions?
What was the first part?
COVID is deeply isolating, and this can create a vicious cycle of aloneness when job hunting and when we need to be more connected.
Well, this group is an excellent resource. I mean, how many people are here, David?
There are 60 still on the call. There were probably 70 to 75 total.
All right, so there are a lot of people here who are either in similar positions and who can relate. Feeling as if you have company takes the edge off the solitude piece. The virtual world, though there's some degree of isolation comes with it, enables you to reach parameters far beyond if you had to drive there. So organizations, your local chamber, there is a sentiment going around about Zoom fatigue, that people are tired of being on Zoom, but it's certainly better than nothing. Hopefully, with the vaccine being introduced and the spread of the virus slowing down, life will start to resume as normal. But I recommend, just try to integrate yourself into organizations where there's company. Simple as that.
Hi, this is Leora. I'm actually worried about when the pandemic is over that I won't have access to all of these Zooms. I actually feel more connected now than ever because I'm in Manhattan in New York. I can do Zooms with people in New Jersey and Philadelphia. So I feel actually more connected. I've met more people than I ever would have met otherwise. And they've actually helped me a lot more too.
I agree. I know some professions will never go back to the same. I know that event planning, that's a big one. Event planners were out of work. They had to figure out really quickly how to bring events to the monitor. And I have several colleagues who are in that field who have said that moving forward, the virtual world is not going away. Further, it's affected corporations. They've learned that they actually can conduct business by enabling some of their staff to telecommute. So that's going to affect real estate. Which companies are going to buy large buildings? I mean, it's definitely had impact in a way. Life isn't going back how it was. It's going to be different. And some professions will certainly benefit from the fact that they have learned that the virtual world actually has made it easier to conduct business than not.
Yes, and also about smiling, I remember learning in school that they said that even with a fake smile, you start activating certain hormones in the body, and it eventually becomes a real smile if you want to lift up your mood.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And we have a question from Amit, and he also typed it. And again, folks, if you'd like, you can just kind of electronically raise your hand, let me know you have a question. But his question is, or a comment and a question: most likely we all know we should be doing what we love and enjoy most, but we make choices to deal with reality. So of the 10 points you made, which ones, in your opinion, are the most important to hold on to?
Oh boy. Well, you know, I mentioned that my family used to say that I marched to the beat of my drum. It never felt like a compliment. Really, it felt like it always felt like a slight. Now, I had the talent trifecta. I was arts, smarts, and athletics, so I had options available to me. And my father thought I should be a doctor because I had the grades for it, and he really pressed. The truth is, I knew what I wanted to do, and I built my entire career around motherhood. So I went to art school, which is pretty much polar opposite of medicine. I ended up making a really successful career of it for a good chunk of time. So I'd say that no, you know who you are. You know what you like. And even if honoring yourself means loss of current circumstances or a relationship, you only get one chance here. So if you want to get the most out of life, then you've got to really honor who you are. I'd say the most important is aligning who you are and knowing it first, and then making sure that that's what you're putting out there. So I'd say the consistency piece. They're all really important. They're pieces of it, but I can't crawl in your head and tell you what you like most.
And you know, listening to what you're saying in the context of Amit's question, you're advocating, you know, be true to yourself and who you are. Sometimes what you're good at is not always what you love, and so there's a little bit of a way you may have to balance that. So where he mentioned, most likely we should be doing what we love and enjoy most. What I love and enjoy most, I don't want to do professionally. I just want to do it. But there are things that I'm good at. For me, it's technology, and I like it. So that's what I do professionally. So I think that, you know, really being true to yourself is something, you know, a little self-reflection will really help.
Yeah, when you identify your priorities, look, I've been working on President's Intelligence for a long time, but I needed to keep 3 simultaneous college tuitions paid. I had 3 kids. One was a hockey player, the other a drummer. So it's not like they were inexpensive ventures. I was all over the map, but I knew that my motherhood priority was one that I would honor. So I continued with marketing design and worked on Presence Intelligence in background. My promise to myself was when my kids had finally graduated and my daughter is in her senior year of college, that I would turn some of that attention that I had spent on them toward my own initiatives. And that's what I did. So I had a plan. I honored it. I wasn't necessarily loving every element of design and marketing. I was good at it, and it did keep the lights on and the tuition paid. But my promise was that when ready, I would move on, and I did. So it's okay to do what you have to do for a period of time, with the understanding that hopefully, ultimately, you'll pursue what floats your boat. You know?
Yeah, good observation, certainly. There's a question from Patrick. So Patrick, please unmute yourself. Pat Monahan.
Yes. Since today's interview process is almost always online, and one of the things most people like to do is kind of get pumped up and raise their mood up a little bit. Do you have any comment on things we've heard before about power posing before you actually go in for the interview, or turn on your computer for the interview?
You know what's unfortunate about power posing? So Amy Cuddy, who came up with coined that phrase, she wrote a book called Presence, and she used the power posing was when you put your hands on your hips and put your chest out and gives you a sense of power. 2 years after she wrote that book, her co-author came forward and indicated that they only tested it among about 40 or so people, and they were not able to replicate the effects. And she myth busted it. Unfortunately, Amy Cuddy, she was vilified as a result. Now, that co-author had an awful lot of nerve because that person's name is on the book too, but that was proven to not be proven. That said, if before you go into a room and putting your hands on your hips and thrusting out your chest makes you feel more confident, then do it. If listening to a really upbeat song gets you in the mood, or a soothing one, then listen. You have to know what it is that soothes you, that gets you excited, that lets you be articulate, and then you do that.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Yeah, very interesting, terrific observation. And there's a question that's posted here by Guru. Any tips on how to transform your personal presence to executive presence as you move up the career ladder?
Well, you know, it's funny, executive presence is often just relegated for executives. But when you think about the C-suite or the senior tier of any organization, that's a small portion of a company. The greater portion of an organization is in middle management and all. So executive presence it's implied that you have grace under fire, poise, that you're articulate and unflappable. The only way that you can do and be that is if you know what you're talking about, if you know how to soothe yourself in stressful situations, if you are poised when you carry yourself. You know, I had a client who, he was a senior VP of marketing. That guy could silence a room before he entered it. When you were in a conference room, you could hear his footsteps coming. People would move to their seats and go sit down. Because he was smart, articulate, he could answer any question. He never seemed flustered. This guy was prepared for his role. When he retired, his replacement was a woman who, this woman like flew to Texas to get her hair done every month. She had great shoes, always matched her purse, but yet if she was at the podium, people would throw popcorn if they had it. She could not command that room. She did not have presence. So executive presence is really not any different than having a strong personal presence with confidence, and again, grace under fire, which means you're unflappable in tough circumstances. Some people are built for it. I mean, think about EMTs and people or surgeons or neurosurgeons, stressful situations for which they are built. So it comes from a matter of preparedness, practice, excellence in your skill, and knowing how to soothe yourself when the fire gets hot.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm looking at the chat. Nobody else has posted questions, so I guess we'll just wrap up now. Now, let you know, Lisa's slides are now available on our website. Lisa, thank you for sharing those with us.
Sure.
So our website, of course, is psgofmercercounty.org, and in the upper right is a link called Meeting Presentation Documents. So that's where we will have, that's where now that slide deck is, so you're welcome to download it. Her contact information, if you wish to contact Lisa, is in the slide deck as well, so that's terrific. We will be keeping this session open beyond in a couple of minutes when I wrap up. We'll just have open networking, and so you are welcome to participate and hang out with us a little bit. That's kind of our own after party, if you will. But just before we start that, I want to let you know what's coming up the next couple of weeks. So next week is January 29th. Yolanda M. Owens, excuse me, will be here. She is a career coach, and she is actually from Washington, D.C. So one thing that's been really kind of special for us and other groups being virtual, excuse me, is that we can invite people who are outside our geographic area. And her program is really spot on for a lot of job seekers. And Lisa mentioned this before, Beating the Bots, which is the applicant tracking system. Beating the Bots, how to get your application past the system. And so really very important to understand, because a lot of people think that the acronym of ATS actually means applicant trashing system. So, but if you know how to beat the bots, you can improve your odds. So next week, Yolanda Owens will be here. The following week, Janice Coleman will be here. Janice will be talking about, let's get this game started, how to go hard in the paint with your job search in 2021. And in the paint, that's a sports reference. So since athletics, Lisa, are part of your profile, maybe you'll want to participate and watch that as well. You're always invited to come hang out with us. So that's what we'll be presenting here on February 5th. And then just to keep in mind, there are lots of other groups in the area where you can participate as a member of a job seeking support group. You can always visit landingexpert.com, landingexpert.com. It's Alex Freund's website, and he has the networking list. You put in your zip code and how far you're willing to travel, and these groups will pop up. Now, of course, you don't have to travel to these groups. You can look for any of them. And then find the contact information, get in touch. You'll find their groups every day of the week. Of course, there's the career support group. They met last week. There's New Jersey Job Seekers. New Jersey Job Seekers meets virtually every Tuesday evening at 7:30 in the evening. And so you can always find the meeting link in our LinkedIn group. I last posted it about a week ago. I will post it again a little later today. It's free to join. It's usually a Zoom or GoToMeeting. And our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, they meet on Mondays at 10:30 in the morning. psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz, and PSG of Morris County. They meet Wednesday mornings at 9:30, psgmc.org, psgmc.org. So reach out to them and you will find out what programs they have in the coming weeks. So once again, do want to thank Lisa for participating and joining us again. Lisa's been with us before. I'm so glad that you came back. So thank you very much. And otherwise, we hope to see you all very soon, virtually, of course, unless you bump into me in the supermarket. That'll be nice too. I'll be the one wearing the mask. And so we hope to see you all very soon, hopefully next week. And until then, we'll simply say, bye, everybody.